G'day, hi, and welcome. Alright, I got my Nikon D100 here, and for some of you out there, you probably wouldn't even look at this camera, considering what's out on the market today, but this is just going to be kind of like, basically, how much I paid for it when it was new, is it still a relevant camera today, and hopefully I'll be able to squeeze in some shots for you. First off, the first problem is, this is the wrong receipt, and it was upside down, so I'm going to go to this receipt. I kept the receipt, believe it or not. Now, this is 2003. This was kind of like near the end of the D100 production run. And just to give you an idea, in the day, back in 2003, September 17th, 2003 was the day I bought this thing from Henry's. And it starts off, one Nikon D100 digital SLR camera, $2249.99 for just a camera body, down from $2,500. So it was on sale, so that's still pretty expensive. Now you're probably saying, oh yeah, my God, I can't believe you paid that much for it. But you got to think back in the day, this was a super camera back in the day. The next one up from this was the D1. You know what I mean? The D1 or the D2, whatever it was. Those were, like, this was just one, this would be the equivalent of the D810 now. I know a lot of it, not that this can compete with it, but in its placement in the pecking order. That type of thing. This was a pretty high up there camera. And it's still a great camera. And then of course I got a 19 to 35 millimeter Tamron lens, $429.99. UV filter, Tiffin UV filter, $52. I can't believe that. And the Sigma which I still have this lens, Sigma AF 70 to 300, $112.49. That was excellent. And then a few other little odds and ends in there. And for a total of $3,402.51. Yes, I paid that much for this camera. Wow. So what did you get for that money back in the day? And what would it be worth today? Well, today, obviously, I've seen these cameras as low as $17 on eBay. I don't know if that was working. I can imagine they would go for around $100, give or take, and maybe in mint condition. Although this one looks like it's in mint condition, it is well used. I don't know what the shutter life is on this one, how many shots I've taken, but I would say estimate it in the $250,000 mark that I've taken with this camera, believe it or not. Most of it in the first few years that I owned it, because I went everywhere with this thing. But basically, what was I going to say? The camera itself, the camera body was, it's very durable. It's still good. I've only dropped it once. Incidentally, the first day I had it, friends accidentally got snagged on walking by the table, snagged on it, and pulled it on the ground. That was the only time it ever fell. But what do you get for the money back in the day? Well, you got, I don't know if it's titanium or whatever alloy they use. So that's good and solid. We'll take this off here and let you see inside. A camera that can use pretty much any Nikon lens ever made. It's a geared, driven one, but it also has for the autofocus and stabilization on there. Now, the extremely new lenses, it probably won't run them. This is just one generation behind that. So you have basically a camera that at the time was about as close to film as you could get. Here you have your exposure. You can look through the viewfinder when you're particularly just before the shot. You can see if it's going to be underexposed or overexposed. Very handy feature. You have a continuous manual mode here. Okay, so you got manual, single shot, or continuous for the lens. So if you want to, my Nikkor lens actually has the feature on the side where I could go manual on the lens on the side, but this puts your lens in manual mode. This is your lens release. And then, of course, you've got a dial here, okay, the on button, and something that I don't even see on most new SLRs. See that hole in the middle of the firing button? Well, that there you can use the old switches, the cable. You can use the cable with that. You've got a light to turn on your screen here. You've got your meter, and then of course you've got this dial here, which is locked in by here, and you've got timer, continuous, and single shot. And then you've got manual, aperture, shutter, and basically auto, ISO, white balancing, quality, and metering. Which you also, when we get to the back of the camera, we'll show a little more. But the thing about this is you can take NFE RAW, TIFF, JPEGs, 3 different sizes, basically anything from the size of this, that'll fit in your wallet, to a billboard on this. 6.1 effective megapixels. Very anemic by today's standard, but one thing about it is it does take fairly clean shots. This camera does tend to underexpose a bit. And you got a pop-up flash, which you can also control the flash. You can make it a rear flash, full flash, whatever. It's got a whole bunch of flash options built into the camera. Dial here and a dial here, like I said, for full manual operation. We look at the back here. You've got your view. This is your menu. Oh, I turned the camera on. Okay. So you got your menu. Shut the menu off. Okay. This is for some editing. You got a lock, so you don't. You got an enter button and a delete button. You also got 1 card slot. So that's what it has, 1 card slot. I got a 256 meg in there. I think these older cameras don't take, from what I heard, they don't do better. They don't do well when you put bigger than a 2 gig in there. You got a dial here, and then I forget what this one was for. Anyway, it's got that. You've got you can basically sharpen or whatever, adjust your viewfinder view. You've got a bracketing button, shutter, flash control, metering. You got basically a closed metering, full metering, and a spot metering. And then you've also got autofocus. Like basically focus lock, I guess is what you call it. And then you got a rear dial. And you've got an extra flash that you can put on it, and a whole bunch of other things that you can do with this camera. So you can go look up the specs, but 6.1 megapixels, is that enough to do anything? Well, this camera itself, I'll do a separate video on how much this camera's made me, without really even trying. This camera's made me a bit of money. The shutter was rated for about 130,000 shots. I've probably taken close to 250,000 shots on this. I don't know how many I've taken. Because I used to go out and like 700 shots a day type of thing, that type of thing. And I did that for like a year straight, pretty much every other day. That I'd take it out. Everywhere I go, I'd take this camera. Did a couple of weddings for it, a couple of car shows, did a model shoot, and now I'm back into the stock photography, which I did some stock photography. But the thing about the 6.1 megapixels, don't get too scared of that, because this would be a great starter camera for somebody. Now, I hate to say it'd be a starter camera, but you get so much out of it. And it's such a hefty camera, such a well-built camera. I remember when the D70 came out, it felt really small in comparison to this. But this is a really hefty camera, and it does take fairly clean shots for time. And I'll put some photos in, you can judge for yourself. My photography notwithstanding, and there's a lot of things, but just to give you an idea of what it'll give you. But one of the things about it is that depending if you're selling for stock agencies, some of them might require 3 megapixels, which this camera will be more than fine. Some will require 6 megapixels or 5 megapixels. Some of the sites have been rejected because they require 6.3 megapixels, and because of that, this camera is now obsolete. That type of thing. But that said, can you sell in other areas? Yeah, you probably could. So what I'll do is, again, if you can find one of these things used, you probably won't regret buying it. And get yourself a good lens or whatever. If you get a really good lens on this thing will take amazing photos. So I'll throw in some photos. You can judge for yourself whether you think this would be a good camera for you if you can find it for the right price. All right, have a great day.